Okay, I think I may have found a new method to prevent my belongings from getting completely soaked. Hopefully. Alright, so even though I've only been in Montreal for a short time as of current, I'm already going to nickname this city the air traffic city of Canada. Because, my God, since I've been here, the week and a half that I have, there have been non-stop airliners going in and out of Pierre Trudeau International Airport. Like, constantly, they just fill the skies. You will never... No, seriously, it's like every 5 to 10 minutes you will see a jet plane going one direction or another, either taking off or coming in for a landing. And well, it's very interesting to see. You know, there's a lot of heavy tourism to Montreal, obviously. And even when I was in southern Laval, I could see planes taking off and landing heading towards what is southwestern Montreal, where Pierre Trudeau International is in the Dorval district. But, so, yeah. Welcome to the metropolis of the Canadian province of Quebec, Montreal. It's the biggest city in the province. That's the second biggest in all of Canada. And, well, it's already been an interesting week and a half for me since coming into here. Now, I came in from for Laval, easternmost, and for Montreal, northeasternmost connecting bridge between the two cities, and in terms of and also between Montreal Island and Jesus Island. And I stayed in Montreal Nord, which in standardized English translates to Montreal North. I stayed in that district for about 4 days before heading on through to where I am now in Anjou, is how you pronounce it. Or, I guess in a Quebecian accent, Anjou, or Anjou. Yes, that'd be about right. Well, it has been both a very pleasant experience seeing a lot of authentic multiculturalism, but also in both Anjou and Montreal Nord, I have noticed a mass slew of systemic problems and incredible disparity in various communities. And what I'll be doing in this first part of exploring Montreal is going through mainly the central and northern end of the district, and I want to showcase how already I've noticed that this city has far more pseudo-segregation, noticeable pseudo-segregation as well, or at the very least, than Laval. If you recall from any of my videos in detailing the neighboring city to the west in the greater Montreal area, they just didn't even bother to. So many development companies and property retailers or realtors, property realtors, didn't even bother to create half-assed methods of division for different cultural practices and ethnic groups that have been localized to a certain area, and financial classes things of the sort. But the same cannot be said very clearly for Montreal. So, as I'm going along and talking about something else that I've been meaning to discuss, I'm gonna take you through to the northern half of what would, in terms of common geographical terminology for the layout of Montreal, taking you through the borough of Anjou, I'm going to try and not cut the footage at all and make it just one continuous shot, starting from here. Or, well, either from, well, I'm outside the public library here in southern, closer, yeah, it's closer to southern Anjou. But, well, anyway, starting from somewhere around this portion of the neighborhood I'm in, I'm going to keep it as one continuous shot all the way up to the northern end of the district. And I want you, as I'm talking about the other thing I want to discuss, to see if you pick up on the layout of the infrastructural maintenance and just general construction layout and structuring of the communities. So, let us get moving. Alright, so right now we're leaving the public library, which is in more central southern portion of Anjou. We're heading down a road called Rue Goncourt. So I'll let you take in the surrounding architectural structures for housing right now, as I'm sure you'll notice in this area it seems to be of more upper middle class housing spaces. Which as far as I'm concerned, is not a very good start, given my ideologies. But trust me, you'll start to see far less well-maintained properties very soon. So, what I want to discuss for this video, well, I've been thinking about this quite some time, and it's something that seems to be negated by a lot of political commentary, especially within the internet community. Alright, so now, turning left, going on to a road called Boulevard Wilfrid Pellier. And that topic would be that of being intelligent to a degree of education, or having a lot of knowledge and understanding, at least to some degree, of various aspects of life, or within a specific field of research, or a cultural setting, or, well, combined, all these factors combining to create the different factors of livelihood. If I can, I may also try and point it up to the sky to show you the air traffic. Then again, it's very cloudy out today, as we've had on and off rainfall. So, in regards to being educated on something, well, what do I mean by that in relation to someone just having knowledge of various topics in various situations, let's say in a sociological setting, or in a just in whatever realm of knowledge it may be. What do I mean by referring to the internet community negating things such as this, especially in political discourse? Well, what's often thought of as being educated, which I agree with, is one, having an understanding take note of that. Having an understanding as to how something functions, or how something has come about, formed, and how it's utilized in various scenarios, or traditionally amongst say, any sort of people group or a field of research of any kind, but also in how you apply said knowledge in your immediate livelihood, and how you can go. And how you orient your own morality and what I call a cognitive ethical compass around what you've learned. Now, in terms of a lot of political discourse, especially in internet culture, this is something that could be said that it's something that most, especially amongst leftist discourse, would agree on. Just again as a general statement. Oh, there's one. Okay, so one, just from within the 8 minutes that I've been walking away from where I started. Okay, so this is, I guess you could say, just a generally agreed upon statement, even as well as amongst maybe those more centrist belief, falling centrist, as well as center-rightist, and falling right-wing or moderate right-wing. But as far as I'm concerned, there's another piece to this, and that is admitting when you don't know something and not pretending as if you do. Not trying to put on some sort of performative facade in a histrionic sense that you know something when you don't, or in relation to a more narcissistic sense. This again could also be agreed upon. So you might be asking yourself, well, Cam, if this is just generally agreed upon, then what are you getting at? Well, what I'm getting at is, even though that all these things that I've mentioned in terms of being educated and knowledgeable in the realms of critical thought and analysis, research into various elements of the known world and our existence, the functioning of various systematic and systemic forces, all the rest. There seems to sadly be a disregard for admitting when you have unknowingly, in a non-malicious sense, been stupid. For well, even if you are a highly intelligent person, or just averagely intelligent, I guess you could say. Or more specifically, in this regard, when you have unknowingly, or just in terms of your immediate thought process mentally, said or done something that contributes to a morally depraved force, or bigotry, or something that could be very problematic in terms of the operations of something. And for this, for what I'm talking about here, I'm mainly speaking about sociology, and well, also in relation to psychology, and obviously neuroscience. But also, as this is obviously related to epistemology and philosophy, intellectual thought, and ethics, morality, what you deem to be socially condonable or not. Okay, just to pause that thought for a second. I'm getting off of Wilfrid-Pellier Road and turning onto Boulevard Roy Rene, I believe it's called. Yep. And this will take me down to what is somewhat of a main tourist sector for Anjou, at least in terms of drawing in visitors domestically from other parts of Montreal, or those who are tourists coming into Montreal for vacation and exploration. But there's quite a bit of a problem with that, which I will elaborate more on once I actually get down there. So, when one, I would say, at least if they were intelligent enough to be aware of this, one who may consider themselves to be educated on various topics, you'd think would agree to admit when they've made a lapse in judgment or cognitive error, they've made a poor decision, and admit that what they said was wrong, even if it goes against what they genuinely feel as being their moral stances and their philosophies, something that was hypocritical of them to say or do, something that doesn't coincide, if they were made aware of this by their own self-reflection or from others making them aware of it, something that doesn't coincide with their ideological beliefs. But yet, amongst so much of, I'm right now talking about mainly leftist discourse, but trust me, it's far more on being uneducated and being highly unintelligent and being very much authoritatively degrading and putrid socially, trust me, is rampant across the far right and the entirety of rightism as a whole, as far as I'm concerned, and in many regards, and obviously extremist centrism. So, don't get me wrong, that's rampant, even amongst those who, and I'll talk about this in a bit, who you might consider, I guess you can call them right-wing intellectuals or centrist intellectuals, but I'll talk about that later. You'd think someone would want to admit to their wrongs, in order to help benefit their causes, the ideologies that they believe in. But as far as I've observed, in terms of far leftist discourse, and to some extent rising leftists, as well as that, well, it can be found all across the diversity of leftism. Sadly. This vast array of narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder, widespread, mass intellectual complexes, and histrionic personality disorder of caring about how others perceive you overbearingly too much, and constantly being obsessive over it, as well as egotistical personality disorder, being highly egocentric. But I'll get into that more in a minute. Because right now, again, I'll point out again, so this is the central area of Anjou. And the neighborhood that houses it is Chimont. I believe that's, well, its name, considering from what I've observed being here the last few days. And I was told, actually, that there's going to be an event tomorrow. As you can see, some municipal workers are setting up, well, road blockages, I guess, and no parking spaces probably for various vendors or tent or table setups. But this is clearly, to some degree, performatively, a valued tourist center and business center for the borough. As you might be able to tell, the layout of road conditions and sidewalk maintenance is, well, far different than what you may see of the surrounding communities, and you might be able to somewhat tell looking over there. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is done solely as a performative move to increase tourism flow to the area for economic amalgamation, so that these various small businesses that are along here, as well as, wouldn't you know, a gentrifying mega corporation, as well as a moderate pharmaceutical corporation, can rake in further profits for exploitation of the community. But so, okay, this area is very, very diverse in terms of ethnic inhabitants, cultural practices, as well as an amount of LGBTQ plus communal residents and religious worship. And despite the what appears to be mass amounts of infrastructural support put into the community by the councilor's administrative division for this section of the city of Montreal. I have no clue who the current councilor of the district of Anjou is. Despite that, the businesses along here, small businesses, singular, are very clearly, from what I've observed, struggling to maintain profit. As with this area being advertised heavily and promoted as sort of the main tourist section, it's no doubt that the value in terms of property rights and real estate has gone up since all that started. As you can also tell here in this vacant lot, that's, well, clearly had some claims to ownership from other forces. Well, it's sought after also by development companies, as you can tell. And if I was, which I will, as I'm walking along here, I'll direct you down some of the other streets, literally just adjacent to this main business hub. And you will notice a vast amount of financial inequality. And of just a vast and also a vast amount of infrastructural damage, literally right adjacent to this whole central area. Now, if you've been paying attention to anything I've been saying across the various videos on my channel so far, I will ask you, why do you think that is? So, yesterday, actually, I was able to get laundry done in that laundromat over there, which is also owned up by this very incredible dessert store, mainly ice cream parlor, Chocolat, right over there, which might be Russian cultural themed as well. Not only from what they've been serving in terms of sweets to some degree, which is more Canadianized, very much. But chocolat is also how you... Well, chocolat is how you say chocolate in Russian. But I was able to get laundry done, and recently I've actually... Oh, here first. Alright. Recently, because of where my finance is at, and because of a bit of a social experiment I've been trying, I have not been begging or panhandling, but I've been asking various people if they'd be willing to give me a few dollars to pay for certain necessities. And I had asked a person down a ways back towards the public library yesterday when I was going to do my laundry if they had maybe $10, $15 just so I could get some done, and they gave it to me, which I was very thankful for. And then when I actually got into the laundromat, I didn't have any soap with me for detergent for running through the washing machine. And a person there went out I asked if they might have any soap that I could borrow, and they went out to their car, got some that they had put into a old, well, soda bottle, and gave it to me. And they also gave me a handful of what are they called? Fuck. I'm blanking on the name of them. The pads that help to decrease the static buildup, electrical static buildup when you run clothes through drying machines, the dryers. And I was incredibly thankful for that. And when I was finishing up doing my wash, I was going to hand them the soap back, and they just said, no, you keep it. And I was thankful for that as well, but they left, and I ended up leaving the soap there just so anyone else can use it along with the static sheets. But either way, that's a display of kindness and compassion. Oh, but back to something that is not compassion in the slightest. Yeah, gentrification is, yeah, not so pleasant. Okay. Now this road down here is very, it's very, very impoverished. There's a high amount of infrastructural problems. I don't know if you can tell from here. Maybe I'll go back down towards the end of the video because I'm trying to keep this in one shot. And somewhat down here as well. But anyway. So back to my topic for the video. So much of the ideas around epistemological thought completely disregard, at least in modern internet discourse, and really, again, political discourse as a whole, completely disregard someone doing something more and contributing to a prejudice of any kind, which I think is an incredibly toxic ideal, because so often that seems to be the main issues that people within political discourse have contributed to. It's the whole point of trying to seek societal change. If you're engaging in such debates or actively being a participant in some form of genuine activism or advocacy. Okay, so pay attention to this. These very pointlessly placed concrete cylinders, or sort of almost cylinders. These concrete objects. And pay attention to the community we just left. There is a somewhat more, it seems, maintenance-wise, well-maintained apartment complex that might be more, from what I'm seeing of certain residents, what I have been seeing, standardized middle class. And if we go along here somewhat, you'll see the similar design of townhomes, which just architecturally, I will say, in this portion of Montreal, notice there's a lot of, well, very much urban, Western, Central European architectural influence in terms of the connection of houses. You can see, I guess, some amount of French or Belgian influence in them, as well as English, as design is also common, you can see in like London or Manchester. And I have also, similar to the very much elitist communities of Laval, I have noticed in certain areas more Romanian or Moldovan architectural influence, some more Eastern European style in terms of design. But, well, I think you can tell, though, in terms of property maintenance and affordability for repairs, compared to where I'm about to go, is rather lacking to a certain degree. As if you can get a better view from where I'm standing. As well as, if I'm not mistaken, just before I go down this road beside me here, which is enclosed by chain link fence for absolutely no reason, seemingly no reason. Okay, yeah, you'll notice here as well, stark difference in terms of where I'm about to enter. From these homes to these homes. Yeah. No, I haven't even been over in this section of the neighborhood very much. But, well, just keep an eye on it as you're continuing to watch. Getting one more shot of this. All this. Okay. Let's keep walking. So, you would think that those who genuinely care about the causes they so-called support would want to admit when they've contributed to prejudice that actually hinders their causes. But sadly, not so much. As too often people are so adamant to be in full support of what they either genuinely to some degree do believe in, or in a performative sense are so adamant to portray this image of themselves as being an ally to said causes, that they can't really accept in how their psychological state is in this point in time of their life because of various factors. Just, again, to stop quickly, just to put this point in. Again, pointless fence, and there is no reason for this to be a cul-de-sac type formation of a road. There's no reason at all. You could have connected those roads. Absolutely. If you tore down enough greenery here and trees to build this and pave this, you could have made a small enough opening for cars to come in and out of this patch of land here. You could have done that. Well, clearly to some degree, you did it for other reasons. All right. If you'll take notice that this area is getting into more upper middle class residency. So anyway, for whichever of the two reasons, well, I'm mainly going to focus, okay, performative activism, as far as I'm concerned, that's rightism. That's not genuine. You don't genuinely care about the cause you support. Which technically, okay, this would be very rare in the modern sense, and has been historically as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, performative activism could also be in regards to rightist values and ideals, when you actually hold leftist ideals, which, well, you know what, I'm sure obviously in certain communities where someone is oppressed and afraid to speak out about their true political affiliations or ideals, well, then they may contribute to seemingly supporting right-wing causes. But anyway, right now I'm going to more so specifically speak to those who genuinely ideologically have care for what they are preaching, what they say they believe, and try to enact justice towards morally. So, when someone gets into the mindset that they are absolutely 100% for a cause, for an ideology, which they may be, cognitively, it can make them, and it does, as far as I'm concerned, in most instances, in relation to those who don't actively study psychology or research any form of psychology and neurology along with philosophy and sociology, because even though some may do actually believe that everything connects to everything in an ontological sense, they don't seem to actually realize what it is when things are they don't realize where the connections are. But anyway, cognitively, they disregard any amount of their current problematic involvement in contributing to forces that counteract their philosophical beliefs. Oh shit. Okay, good. The kitty cat made it. I don't know if you could see it on the footage, but I'm glad they did. They, in certain regards, some may be willing to admit past involvements and blatant contributions consciously to problematic ideals when they were more ignorant to something, or just being very unaware of what they were doing that majorly impacted problematic factors societally, socioculturally, and interpersonally for themselves and others. But so often, once they have learned that, they get to the mindset of, I have to be absolutely intellectually heightened and aware to, and I must be so aware of these problematic factors that I can't be contributing to them. I can't be, right? Because I've actively now tried to go against that from what... Take a look around again. From what seems to be the issues, the core issues that are causing these things. I've tried going against them from what seems to be, from what they've discerned as being going against them. But here is a bit of reality. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of neurocognition and psychology, your psychological state and the function of our emotional processes, you will have moments where you intellectually slip up. You will have many times, because of a variety of interactions with external stimuli, disrupting your cognitive process. Maybe it's because in relation to an apathetic response consciously. It's come about because of disrupt to your subconscious desires. Or maybe because you ate something that nutritionally wasn't the best for you, and it's disrupting your critical thought process at the time. Maybe you're having memory recall issues because of psychological problems, or in relation to physiological damage, say lesioning within the brain structure, disrupting memory recall. You might not fully recall what you had cognitively believed or thought previously the day before to some degree, or you know what you morally stand for, but you can't fully remember if you enacted that in a really, truly beneficial way. And despite those who are going to protest against my statement, no, that happens Far more than you'd think. It's rampant. That happens constantly, especially with the constant further continuation of detrimental forces within our livelihoods. And in all this, you will most likely say and do something that contradicts. Oh, there. Yep, another one. I think that was about maybe, that's probably at least over 25 minutes. But I'm sure trust me, there's a lot more on a frequent basis. There's usually a lot on a frequent basis. I mean, it's just because of the weather conditions right now, you can't really, I haven't been able to notice them taking off. But anyway, okay, well, actually, another slight interruption. This is the park that I've been staying in for the past week. Now, if you go through the trails here in the forest patch, you will end up back towards the central area of Anjou, the highly impoverished to lower middle class area. Now, I'm going to, should I go down this road? Yeah, why not? This will take me straight to it. If you noticed, the general infrastructure and seeming net worth income of most of the residents around here, in terms of what they clearly are able to afford to some degree, at least generally for the most part, has been gradually upticking, as this area is much more so upper middle class. So just be aware of that as we get further down here. And interestingly, I noticed this a couple of days ago. A limousine van, or a lima van, or a vanazine. I've never seen one of those before. Interesting. Okay. So, bottom line is, too often, people who are so adamant at contributing beneficial input to their ideals in their social settings don't recognize when they've had unintelligent slip-ups and have had prejudiced slip-ups towards what they believe. And now I'm going to, usually I would give different examples from just hypotheticals, I guess. But this time I'm actually going to give more of my own examples, similar to what I did in the videos I made in Ottawa, where I was going over things that I regret in my life, and admitting things that I've been wrong about, and going over and recounting things I've been wrong about to correct. My god, that's fucking nightmare fuel. So is that. I know. Well, actually, that may be inspired by some amount of Norse, Scandinavian cultural influence. It's not anything against. See, that could have ended up being prejudice there. Technically, if we're being specific in the paradox of existence, it is. But, well, nothing at all wrong culturally with creating stump lawn art or art similar to that of like garden gnomes or garden statues, small garden statues, for what was believed in more of Nordic mythology, believe warding off various, I think it was goblin creatures, warding off what was, I guess, considered to be harmful entities. But in terms of just this specific design here, oh my god, that is horrifying. So, I will give accounts myself for things that I've messed up on that contradict my own ideals for more recent times. So, let's start with one that occurred for me when I was actually leaving the city of Laval. When I was actually in the process of filming Exploring Laval Part 9, towards the end of it, as I was getting closer to exiting the city's municipal borders to go out to the furthest easternmost connecting bridge. Sorry again, just take notice of where we are and any changes you see happening. Oh. Oh. At least there's some amount of pleasant wildlife displays in this area. 2 cats that I've seen so far. Nice. And by wildlife displays, I mean human creations, because we are a part of the natural environment as well. We are also animals. But anyway. When I was leaving Laval, I was pulling along Cardi B, and it was a very blazing hot day. And I had water with me, but, well, I was only doing so much. And I believe the heat was contributing to some amount of just cognitive disrupt, slight amount of reaction of my psychosomatic illness. And when I got to an intersection, I saw this person riding a bike, and it was in a very much more so ultra-rich area. At least the majority of the portion of the district I was in, which was the district of Duvernay, more so was on the higher end wealthy side. And I noticed this person on a bike, and they had stopped for a second, and I couldn't see their face because they were facing backward to me, and they were wearing attire more reminiscent of LGBTQ, culturally inspired, and much more tight clothing and less amount of coverage in terms of portions of their body. And given how I've talked about the internalizing of prejudice for various, well, amounts of development of psychological disorder, I made a joke just to myself about, well, I guess someone hasn't come out of the closet yet in terms of their sexual expression, their sexuality, because, well, of what they were wearing and given the general populace of the area. But then I saw them turn around, and they had more feminine characteristics. I had originally thought they had more masculine characteristics from what I could see. And then immediately I was like, oh, okay, they have more feminine presentation. Oh, never mind, I guess not inherently wearing, even if it is culturally expressive, wearing more revealing clothing is obviously not inherently sexual. I am sitting on the world's worst seesaw. Oh my god! Why was I doing that? You know what, why don't I just sit like this? That'll work. But, then I immediately thought, oh wait, what am I saying? Just because they have more feminine characteristics does not change the fact that, just because they have more feminine characteristics does not mean that for that gender expression or being of a gender that has more femininity to it, that it revealing clothing suddenly becomes not inherently sexual, and for masculinity presentation it can be, which is not what I obviously believe, but I had thought for a second, well, it was a cognitive dissonance of mine, something that I didn't realize in making that joke, because I believed it and I was making it. And that was sexist of me to do, because that's, as far as I'm concerned, a manufactured double standard for adorning attire in relation to revealing clothing. Now, as I've said before, there's nothing wrong with nudity being sexual, and there's nothing wrong with clothing attire inherently being sexual. But it's not inherently. Which I'll talk about more at a future date in relation to, I guess, a method of clearing up confusion for those who don't understand in relation to LGBTQ+ cultural expression in terms of aesthetic fashion. to represent sexual identity and expression. But that was idiotic of me. That was sexist prejudice and a double standard that is not inherent, which I immediately corrected myself on. And I was beating myself up mentally for a couple days after that, just by myself, for having thought that in the first place. And then I realized, well, that was idiotic of me to do, as well as it was something dumb that I thought of because of, well, all the factors that I listed. Either way, as far as I'm concerned, it's not much of an excuse. So, obviously, I admitted that I was wrong, and I was very stupid for that. So, that was an example of something of the sort that happened recently. And I'll also talk about another one in just a minute. But first, to interrupt again, now take a look at where we've come to from my walking. So this neighborhood that I'm in now, from looking at the map, I believe it's called St. Justin in the northern end of Anjou. And as you can tell, it is massively wealthy, incredibly high quality property developments, incredibly expensive on the market, condos, and very much Japanese inspired architectural designs, and popular amongst North American elites and ultra corporate capitalist development companies. And sure, you could tell the general infrastructure of the entire area in terms of communal maintenance, road work, environmental plant care, in terms of the greenery, it's much more extensively maintained than the area I was in prior. As well as the fact that, oh, another one again. Caught it that time. As well as the fact, I don't know if there are any visible instances of it in the footage I've been taking right now, but from what I've observed being here last week, there is far less policing presence in this neighborhood compared to that of southern and central Anjou. So you could even tell where, oh, god damn, fly was caught in my hair. As you could tell, the main police precinct for the district was closer to the southern half. Oh, and there you go again. Wow, you are very low to the ground. And you're on a slant. Maybe you flew off course a bit and you're trying to turn very quickly to properly straighten out for the landing. I hope you're not in any sort of danger to the pilots and passengers on the plane. But again, far less police presence over here. And right now, seeing as I've kept this going for one continuous clip this amount of time, I'm going to cut the footage here so that I can drink some water and then further showcase the area. As I think from what I demonstrated, it'll be enough for you to pick up on the very much extensive presence of pseudo-segregation. But before I cut the footage, I just want to showcase this pointlessness here. What is this? What the fuck is this? So you have this very, very intricately laid out walkway built with various separate stone pieces cut perfectly to match in symmetry. And then you have these other divided, it looks like, concrete slabs that clearly had to be molded to this specific formation to do what? Place fucking weed-looking plants at, not even all throughout it, just at certain points of it? Not even taking up a majority of the space of the concrete and the stones, or the stone clusters that were used to make it. And it's going in this sort of swooping, almost zigzag but not quite motion across these dirt hills here that have grass growing on them. This is completely pointless, and it's clearly just done for flashy appearance. Oh god, it even goes over to the next part. That's fucking pointless, stupid, atrocious design. Oh, and almost didn't notice you again. So yeah, that wasn't okay. In the last, just clearly in the last 10 minutes, we've seen at least 3 scattered throughout the air. So, yeah. Okay, anyway, I'm going to pause this now and drink some water. Yeah, I'm not surprised a copy of you is here. Never read you, but, well, just in terms of the fan base associated to you, I'm not surprised. So any fans of the book, I don't hold an opinion on the art piece. I hold an opinion on the majority of you. Yep. Yet another. Okay, well, took a longer break than I had expected to, but I needed to charge my devices. So anyway, just to point out further, well, more elitism, I don't fucking know. Oh, but also, I guess, I can kind of see it from here. I think. Oh. Can you get a view? Yeah, well, somewhat. Oh yeah, you can. Over there is more unbelievable amounts of disrespect to the whole of humanity and the natural world. But anyway, so what's another instance I can pick out in regards to lapse in judgment and ignorance on my part, lapse in my knowledge? Well, this next experience was in Ottawa during the wintertime, about maybe a month before, a month or two before I ended up leaving. I decided to tag along for some errands that were being run by some people I'd known in Ottawa. And for the past week or so, at the time, I had been experiencing a bout of very bad insomnia. And oh, this is interesting, actually. This is a first that I've seen. Guess they do sometimes come around here. Oh, actually, no. Never mind. I think they might just be conversing with a friend of theirs or a family member who lives in the area. Or maybe they do too. But, well, anyway. So, I had tagged along for these errands that they had to run. And it was at night, so it was, well, maybe around 8:30, 9 p.m. And mind you, of course, I had been sleep deprived for the last week or so. I had been able to only really fall into REM sleep at points for about maybe an hour or 2 to 3 hours in the day during said period. And whilst we were in one store, there was another person there. Well, there were obviously a few people, but there was a person specifically who was shopping in the clothes section of this. I guess it was just a general home appliance store mixed with some amount of thrift apparel. But okay, just to point out again quickly, take notice of the specific structures that are laid out between this section of St. Justin and then this section over here that runs beside the park. So we're in the store, and one of the people that I was with made a really stupid joke, really blatantly offensive, not made a very unironically offensive joke. And they point out how they thought this person had been in the tanning salon too long, or tanning machine, because their skin was very, well, tan. It was very golden brown color with some amount of sun marks where patches where they hadn't gotten, well, any sort of any large amount of UV rays darkening their skin. And when they said that and I looked over, I laughed. Just, well, because I had at first found it humorous. But then, immediately once I did that, and I think the person might have heard this other individual who I was with say it, and then me laugh, I felt terrible because I realized, well, A, that's incredibly prejudiced in terms of if they had just, maybe they didn't use a tanning machine, which I think are horrible for your dermatological health. But had just gotten a natural tan, either purposely or not purposely, and in that regard, or if it was intentional to darken their skin that way, maybe as what I would consider to be a minimalistic, effective treatment for body dysmorphia, the mental condition of body dysmorphia. And, well, that was, if so, that was ableist of me as well, and also in just in terms of skin color, that would be, I could consider that racist as well. Just specifically in that element, because they didn't make a joke about anything that they were wearing in terms of aesthetics, but just in terms of their skin pigment. So that was prejudice of me, and idiotic of me to do. And I shouldn't have. And I thought about actually going to apologize to the person, but, well, we were going to leave. Or, well, the people I was with were going along to leave, and I was torn between what to do at the moment in terms of my decision-making abilities, given how my lack of sleep was affecting my cognition. So that was idiotic of me. I wish I hadn't have done that. What's another? Well, I talked about this incident also that happened in Ottawa whilst I was staying in Ottawa a few months ago. In my Exploring Gatineau, my first Exploring Gatineau video, when I had actually crossed over the main connecting bridge between downtown Ottawa and the Hall district of Gatineau. I talked about how when I was in a bar in Ottawa one night after having gone out walking and I believe handing my copies of my resume out at various establishments. Now, one moment. Just take notice of that. And well, you can't really see too well through the trees. But, oh, and also two at one time. How I was in a bar and I had just been getting something to eat. And at this particular time of day, they were running a karaoke set in the room next to me. And there were various client participants just singing along to various song instrumentals. And someone got up on stage that, they started singing a song, I forget which one it was, but as far as I'm concerned, they were not doing a good job of it in terms of keeping up with the melody and inflection and tone is in terms of what they were, in terms of trying to actually keep up with the song. And at first, and I started laughing to myself because I thought they were purposely trying to mess up in terms of singing the song. I thought they were purposely trying to perform poorly to be comedic. But then I had heard one of the employees say, well, hey, give it up for this person. And then I saw them walk past the door frame of... Wait, did I? Oh, wait. Oh, some events going on here. No, wait, no. Actually, I don't remember. Yeah, I might have seen them walk past the door frame, or might be misremembering that. I might have just solely heard them talking to someone else. But one way or another, afterwards, I believe I heard them... Okay. My memory is getting a little hazy at this point. I think I have to go back and rewatch a bit of Exploring Gatineau Part 1 to hear myself explain it again. But either way, somehow I found out a bit more about the situation, and then I thought, oh, they might have a disability that hinders their vocalization to some degree, or articulation abilities. And so I'm just sitting on a rock here for a sec. I contemplated, well, in terms of how it sounded, whether I was being ableist or not. Now again, as I said in that video, the singing was still not good, and I still feel that. I'm not gonna pretend to give praise to something if it's not done well. That doesn't mean that a person with said disablements can't perform well, or at the very least try to. Obviously not. It would be ableist to think so. But either way, it's just as ableist to intellectually patronize them and giving them false praise, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, that's infantilization. It's very dehumanizing. So they still didn't perform well, as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of whether they were actually trying to do a good job of it and actually coordinate themselves with the music well enough, I don't know. But if they were, then yes, I would say that I was being ableist. And again, that was idiotic of me. And I was gonna think of maybe a few more examples, I guess, but in regards to this, I guess I'll just direct you to the videos I mentioned on my channel where I was God, there's my dysarthria. Self-reflecting in the furnace room of the place that I was primarily staying at, where I was situated for the most part whilst living in Ottawa last winter. Because I mentioned about things that I regret doing as well, that would have been, in terms of my ethical stances and ideologies, hypocritical of me, even at the time when I had done said things. Because for some of them, I had discerned, my beliefs in terms of my values going against things that I did. So, bottom line with that is, okay, actually, I'll get through this woodland area and talk about them more, but I just want to point out here, this is the best camping spot I've had so far, hands down. This is the most, I guess the rain slightly, it's slightly pushed your tarp back. Cardi? I just have some socks drying out over there. But, it might not look it from here, but if you go down to the level of the tent, like this, this is really secluded. Nobody's found me back here, at least whilst I've been here. If anyone has come back here and seen it, it's been when I've, gone away from the site. And I actually looked, when I first set up the tent and everything, and placed Cardi B here, from the road you can't actually see through this area very well. You could see where I had the tent originally positioned, a faint bit of blue from its, well, fabric. From over here, obviously as I was coming in, you couldn't see it. And from over here, you can barely see it. I looked last night to see, but even here, the path, in terms of walking for people, just sort of ends, and the grass is way too tall. And not entirely sure from here, but most people who walk through the trails just kind of, well, waltz on past, and they don't take much notice. But it's very, very well hidden, and I'm very happy that I found this area. Okay, so anyway, I'll walk through the park forest, and get some shots inside of it, and then cap this video off. And also, I've got to take a piss, so yeah, let me do that. Okay, so these are the trails running through a small patch of forest here in the main park of the district. At least the most well-known park, it seems. You have various trails running along throughout, and it's very, very pretty, especially at night, with the walkway being, the main walkway being lit up by these trail lights, the lanterns that, oh, the electrical lanterns. It's often very, very quiet. So, all right. And we're coming out back close to where the central area of Anjou is. So, despite how beautiful it is, it serves as a pseudo-segregation method. Very clearly. Alright, let me flip the camera for this next bit. So, my main point with what I'm discussing here in this video is that you can be educated and ignorant at the same time. On both a large extent and a minor extent. You can be intelligent and also stupid in regards to things that you didn't know, in alignment with knowledge that you had already gained, missing a piece of information, as well as having a lapse in your conceptual cognitive function and analytical observation skills. There's, as I said, a variety of factors as to why that occurs psychologically and physiologically. And in this regard to, or in response, I guess, to those who say you can't comment on something even if you know a large amount of information on it based upon your background, your current class status, your physical and cognitive capabilities, your spiritual beliefs, your affiliated identities, your romantic or sexual attraction, whichever else. Yes, you can. Because here's the thing. A lot of people, especially, and I'm pointing directly to leftist discourse, have this idea that you are confined to... Here's a big cognitive dissonance. This idea as if various people demographics are not monoliths, which they aren't. They're not this one singular entity that is intellectually the same, or they're all the same in terms of practice culturally, or societal orientation, or desires, at least in terms of conscious desires. Subconsciously, yes, we all have the same desires. Contradictorily. Contradictingly. But not consciously how they manifest and how we try to obtain fulfillment of said desires. But yet at the same time, there's this notion that you have various people groups have their own separate experiences solely to them, which to some degree is true. How these experiences manifest are different for each demographic, and there are a variety of different societal problems that plague each group in their own formatted ways. That's definitely true. But it's not confined to one experience. And in that regard, as far as I'm concerned, how these sociological issues manifest are really just very distinct variants of the same oppressive forces and the same ignorance and the same, well, lack of empathy and sympathy on the part of those who majorly contribute to it. And in that regard, you cannot separate other people's experiences from your own. You can't. If you're the oppressor to someone, then that is just as much your experience as you being the oppressed over someone else, under someone else's authority. You're both in contribution to what's going on. You can't separate that. The experiences of the oppressor shape that of the oppressed. And the experiences of the oppressed, as far as I'm concerned, shape that of the oppressor. You can't escape that. And as far as I'm concerned, if you have educated yourself enough, are knowledgeable enough to understand this in whatever facet, in whatever walk of life, you have the ability to speak up on what you feel you've observed, and should, as far as I'm concerned, morally. You have the right to tell stories and experiences that are not distinctly, immediately yours, but have connection to things that you or your own cultural background or your own demographic has unfortunately inflicted upon another, and vice versa. You have the ability to advocate and aid those of another group who have experienced oppression similar to yours, or that affects yours in, as I'm saying, some way similar, which is connected, or from your group who has oppressed them, and not in a savior complex mentality. As far as I'm concerned, how I diagnose the savior complex cognitively is having this idea that because of who you are, you need to be the savior to someone else. You need to be the righteous. Only you or someone like you can be the main provider of help to this other person or group. That's a savior complex. Not wanting to help is not inherently a savior complex. It isn't. So, yeah, there's that. I know there's more I wanted to say, and I know that I definitely did not articulate anything that I've said in this video how I truly desired to. But then again, I never will, and no, neither will anyone else in terms of interactive loneliness. So, okay. Just to end this video off, I'm gonna go down one of the roads that I tried zooming in on to show the crumbling infrastructure and mass lack of property maintenance and high poverty rate that I initially had filmed for giving you visual demonstration of what would later come to demonstrate the pseudo-segregation that I was trying to demonstrate. But I'm just gonna actually go down there and try and get some shots so that you better understand the division between this side of the district and that side of the district in St. Justin. The division between the Chimont neighborhood and the St. Justin neighborhood of the Anjou borough of Montreal. So, considering I won't talk anymore in this video, have a nice evening.